size, mister.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am BorderWise and welcome back to From the Depths Most Wanted, a series that I was not anticipating coming back to this soon, but I saw the opportunity and took it. So, little explanation on what on earth, like I just said, and what it means. Most Wanted I had kind of put on hiatus for a bit because a lot of campaign craft were getting updated. However, I was requested the other day to do a Most Wanted on some of the new craft that has been added to the Nita campaign recently. And one in particular, this one we're looking at, stood out because I'm like, hang on, yeah, actually this thing is new enough and probably won't change that much in upcoming updates. And so we can do a Most Wanted on it. And also, this is not, I personally don't think this is an incredibly hard craft to deal with. However, it's that particular kind of craft that if you are not expecting it, or if you run into it early with the wrong kind of craft available to you, it can be a real bastard to deal with. And so this is the spanking new Onyx Watch Anvil. So, first things first, you'll notice it's got guns pointed at the sky. This is a mortar craft, and is one of the new specialized classes of Onyx Watch ship. It is an artillery ship, so does not have a description. Basically, this thing sits a long way from the target and just drops homing cram shells on it from a great distance. And it's a weird thing. I keep thinking it's pointed the wrong way because this skinnier bit at the back is the stern, and this is the bow up front, and it's very round and square and castle-like. So, yeah, it's a weird-looking thing. Like, it looks kind of backwards. But, you know what? It is reasonably scary in its own way. So, why is this thing a scary, scary thing? Well, the fact it's got 10 mortars and in the back here, and they're big as well. They're 1,884 millimeters, high explosive, and I actually haven't checked what kind of fuses are on this thing. All the things you miss. Fuses on them, if this one's the same as all the other one, it's low altitude, so this is, it explodes below 5 meters, so if you remember, I did a kind of quick tutorial on cram mortars the other day. This is what I found is effective, and this is what this craft uses. Even if it misses a surface craft, its shells are going to explode all around it, on top of it, right next to it, and they're still going to peel blocks off like no one's business. So, yeah, that's pretty dangerous, and I should probably show you what I mean by that. Let's get in a plunderer so we can see this thing. So this is probably a little bit close, but the other thing that's particularly dangerous about this craft is that it is really well armored, and it is a front-sider as well. It's designed to point straight at the target. It's not doing that right now, however, because I spawned a little bit too close. But yeah, those mortars should be coming down any second now. You'll see they do have a little bit of a... Yeah, they hurt like hell if they hit. Yeah, that knocked off 20% and actually blew a chunk off the plunderer right there. You'll see once we get to a longer range, the anvil is gonna really put the hurt on. So yeah, like you've noticed some lambs there. I really need to show you this thing's armor because it's actually a little bit ridiculous. So stop that, you get the idea. This thing blows things up quite readily. Rambot, stop repairing. You just slow the path of Rambot. Stop it. Plunder did do a decent fight, but that was like knife fighting range for this thing. This is not a craft that deals well with stuff right up in its face. Even though cram mortars are surprisingly good at that, simply because they fire straight up in the air, they come back down, and that's kind of what they do. And so it's got these cram mortars, which are invisible at the moment. It's got the firing pieces actually above deck, which isn't a particularly smart move with them. One of the main advantages of cram mortars is that you can hide the firing piece below deck without it being vulnerable to turret, and this craft kind of doesn't do that. Not sure why. It's whoever built this, that was their purview. But in any case, this thing is quite well armored. So it's got a lot of the deck is actually 2 meters thick, which is unusual for Onyx Watchcraft, and I generally consider a good idea for the deck to just be made out of 2 layers of lighter material, usually wood, reinforced wood, or ally. The Anvil doesn't care about that. The Anvil is a brick. It is a layer of metal and a layer of alloy, which is pretty darn strong deck armor. Like, armor-piercing stuff tends not to come down at a perfect 90-degree angle straight down on the target. And just coming in at an angle, like the usual kind of, what you would call it, the 45-degree angle, like, pink, that crams and APS tends to do. Well, I'll show you right now with my wonderful armor tool, which can be found in the character menu. Coming in, looking at it from this angle, it has an armor value of about 50. So it's got damn strong deck armor, and it only gets stronger once you go in here. It's like, what is this? Yeah, because there's a layer of heavy armor right here. So, even though the firing pieces of the crams can be destroyed reasonably easily, because there's actually just little small metal blocks surrounding them, the guts of the cram itself, not so much. And my usual rule that I preach to people is that if you're going to put heavy armor protecting something, make sure to fully enclose it. Doesn't really apply right here, because on the top here you have a layer of heavy armor, a layer of alloy, and an air gap, and then a single layer of alloy, which is pretty good defense against a lot of things. Like, especially things like heat and hesh, shape charges, and squash heads. They tend to have trouble doing anything against firing directly down here, because they have to deal with this thin layer before they can get stuck in right here. And lots of space for fragments to disperse. And on the sides, it has spaced armor, so most Onyx Watchcraft tend to be basically big, thinly armored metal boxes, and just the reason they're so hard to destroy is simply because they're mostly empty space, and you can't really destroy empty space. They're just big, and you can't hit all the craft at once, basically. The Anvil still does that. There's still large air gaps here, there, and everywhere for buoyancy, but it's really taken the whole spaced armor thing to a new level. So it's got these big spaces in here, here, here. Where is it? There's a really good example of like deliberate spaced armor, and yeah, here. So this tiny narrow gap in here, it's got proper citadel armor here. So like everything is spaced out. Everything is not. Like, the ammo is not going to destroy anything else that it touches. It's just lots of space. Shooting at this thing with heat and hash is actually... You're kind of on a highway to nowhere. Like, and it's got multiple layers of stuff. So, Onyx Watchcraft, the actual armor is generally only about 2 meters thick. And, yeah, so it's same here. But, once you go up a bit, this bit at the waterline, which tends to get shot at a lot, is 3 layers of metal and a 2-meter air gap, and then a layer of alloy. And you could argue that without this spall liner, a wooden spall liner, hash is going to ruin its day. In practice, I find that hash is quite slow against this, or at least against the weak, spammy hash shells that I tend to use. So yeah, it's well armored, and you really get a sense of that once you go over to the front here, because I had a look at this earlier and just... This is the trebuchet and the iron cordon on crack cocaine, because at its thickest, like if you're shooting it dead on, it's, well, here's a metal block, which is really big, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That line directly there is got ridiculous armor stacking. Like, it only goes up to about 8 or 10. I forgot which it was. I think it's 8. But yeah, and there's a little air gap in here. So 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of armor at least. And it's 8 at the other points. Why is there even a gap in there? Did someone forget to plug it? I think someone just forgot to plug that. That doesn't look like it should be there. Maybe it is deliberate. In any case, this thing is very tough, very hard to destroy. Let me show you what I mean, actually, because I got the explosion tool worked out. So let's do a... what's a good explosion? 3000. Right on the front here. And... bang. That did nothing. That did pretty much nothing. So let's ramp that up to a 13,000 explosion. That also did almost nothing. So, yeah, this thing is very, very explosion-proof, at very least all around the hull. And it also has a LAM system, so anything that is coming down onto the deck is going to have a trouble actually hitting it, because this actually has a pretty good LAM system. And I'll show you what I mean again. So what's something that only has crams? Let's spawn in... what's something that only has crams these days? Let's spawn in a warrior. So the warrior does not have that many crams, but fires those ones. Whoop. And whoop. So... these newer campaign craft have their lambs figured out, so lots of storage and enough pumping, so presumably... I haven't tested this, but I'm guessing it spawns in with 30 seconds worth of energy. It doesn't last forever, but considering how long a range this thing works at, it will eventually... well, just that's the thing. This thing is sitting in the back row, and it is blowing you up from a pretty good distance. So let's follow these crams up. I think some of these are... oh no. I'm starting to think that these are pure kinetic shells deliberately to fool LAM systems. I think that is... a Wellner! What have you done? What have you done, you fuel? I shouldn't blame a Wellner for that. But anyway, in any case, yeah, this is what you have to deal with. Cram mortars are shocking. They're actually against certain kinds of targets that move very slowly and move at least a little bit erratically, like a lot of Onyx Watchcraft. Cram mortars are more accurate than regular crams, which is a little crazy, but it means they do have a little niche for themselves. Anyway, so... got a LAM, it's got good armor, it's got good firepower. It stays at range, so let's go find the AI of this thing. Rambot, you can pair if you so choose. I won't judge you for that. So, it's using the point out and maintain distance, and that distance is quite long. So we go here, combat distance is... like almost 2,000 meters, and we'll try and stay at 200 meters altitude. That's a little bit weird. So all that, maneuver, ship or tank, additional. Okay, so pretty standard. The main thing is that it'll point at a target, maintain that distance, and because cram mortars can kind of tilt every which way, it doesn't need to be facing its target in order to do full damage, which means it's got one up on the trebuchet. The trebuchet most likely will still beat this thing in a one-on fight, but yeah, just unlike the trebuchet or other frontsiders, this thing does not need to be facing the target in order to drop all its shells on them, which is a pretty big advantage. Let's get rid of you and spawn you in again, because I can't wait around for repairs. I am a busy man. I've got lots of nothing to get around to. So an important thing to note about this guy is that the usual story of the Onyx Watch being weak to EMP still kind of holds true, but there are a lot of surge protectors right in the middle of this thing. And, what the hell? What are these mimics? Are they? It is a mimic! Oh, you clever dick, I didn't know that. Oh, of course! How could I have missed that? That's so clever and so pretty. But in any case, we're not talking about aesthetics, we're talking about how this thing will murder you. So, trying to AI dead this thing with EMP, even big EMP surges, is not a good idea. And yeah, it has the ring shields in here as well, just to add insult to injury. And the ring strength is 4.6. Just on the front and back, so anything on the front gets about 4 extra armor, which isn't huge, but it's just enough so that high explosive does even less than it was doing already. And yeah, it's also pretty hard to sink. Like, where is it? It doesn't, unlike a lot of Onyx Watch ships, it doesn't rely on a PID to stay afloat. Instead, has a lot, and I mean a lot, of alloy. It's actually mostly alloy. So you see down here, all the way here, lots of alloy, lots of alloy. It's basically, I think all the internals, almost all the internal blocks are alloy, apart from this metal bit right here, covering the ammo. Here's some metal, here's a lot of metal, here's a lot of metal, metal. But yeah, lots of alloy. Oh yeah, you can see here, lots of alloy, lots and lots of alloy. And alloy is sometimes a bit of a noob trap, in that it is expensive, costs the same as metal, but isn't as durable, but my goodness, it floats well. In case you're wondering, metal has almost neutral buoyancy of minus 1.7, alloy has plus 32. It is incredibly buoyant. The alloy is almost hydrophobic in how it stays out of the water, so this thing is not easy to sink. You need to punch lots of holes in it and kind of destroy a lot of the internals before you actually get this thing to sink properly. So, there is that. And particularly if you run into this thing early, on a budget, you might not have the firepower to deal with that. So, thinking ahead in the campaign is a good idea. You need something to kill this. So what does kill it? Well, to start off with, this thing is not fast. So, it's decently fast by Onyx Watch standards. Where are you going? Going that way. So it's motoring along with its little steam props. Actually, does it have steam props? It does not have steam props. It has steam engines, though. We'll get to that in a second. So it's got these 3 big propellers in the back with big propeller steering, and it's going... Physics... It's going about 5 meters per second. It is not a fast craft, which is pretty standard for the Onyx Watch. They don't really do fast. They do slow, and hard to kill. They are tanky and costly like that. So it is pretty easy to outrun this thing. If you've got anything that goes about 10 meters per second, you will outrun it. However, it bears in mind that cram mortars are pretty decent at dealing with anything that isn't actually moving quite quickly. So, user story with crams, they home in a bit, and that counts for a lot. And I will show you what I mean by spawning in a quick thing. One of my old craft, which didn't survive the APS update very well, but it still does the job. It's still functional. It won't be functional. Damn it! I didn't actually want to do that. I did not want to do that. BorderWise EXE stopped there for a second. Sorry about that. So let's spawn this in at about 2,000 meters, which is the kind of range that the Anvil likes to play at. And let us spawn in a tiny cheap ship just to show you what I'm on about. So this is the Dracaena. I can't remember if I've ever shown this before. It's a little mortar canoe thing with an APS gun and some missiles on it. So this thing did better against the Anvil than I thought it would, but it doesn't do so hot. So it motors along quite quickly. It goes at around... How fast does this thing go? It goes about 30 meters per second. Watch what these cram mortars do. They can hit it, and I know this from experience. So this first volley isn't going to hit. And you'll notice that the direct fire crams kind of whiff over this thing because it twerks back and forth a little. The next volley of cram mortars, yep, here they come. They are going to hit, most likely. Hell, that kinetic one is probably gonna hit. These ones, I think... Yes, oh, these ones are gonna hurt. Yep. Nope. Almost. Third volley. You see how close these things are getting? If it wasn't for the homing effect they have, they wouldn't even get close. Look at that! That tickled it. This craft is moving... Let's see. It's just shy of 30 meters per second. Most crams would have real trouble hitting this right now, but the Anvil, it can do it. Unless the cram mortars have been knocked out now. They might have been. Little EMP missiles. I think they have been knocked out. Well, thank you, Drakaena, for proving me wrong. No, wait. Here they go again. Another thing to note is that the lambs are all pointing forward. So that's a bit of a weakness. All the lambs' nose are pointing forward. So if you chase this thing, what happens is that it can't function. The lambs can't shoot at anything, which is a bit of a design oversight, really. It actually means that spawning it at this range was uh-oh. Huh, maybe it just got unlucky. Alright then, well, you can see for yourself that any craft moving decently quickly can dodge the mortars and the shells. I would not throw anything at this thing that is moving slower than the Drakaena right now. So I'd say at least... Nope. Yeah, I knew it as soon as I was saying that. Like, you want 40 meters per second. You want 40 meters per second in order to reliably dodge the cram mortars on this thing. And I will demonstrate that right now with another craft of mine that also did not survive the APS update particularly well. It was doing better than it was, so gotta remember which end is the front. This is the front. It feels weird to make that noise. So now we're gonna load in this thing. This is not gonna survive more updates. This is the what is it? Light Assault Airship Elgaria. And I don't remember what Elgaria means, so please don't ask. Feel free to Google it. It is a glass cannon, wood cannon, that scuttles along at about 50 meters per second, bounces up and down, is generally very hard to hit, has missiles and big APS guns, and it's the Anvil is going to have a miserable time trying to hit it. Don't think the mortars can even aim at it, it's bouncing up and down so much. Yeah, and to kill it, you basically just have to be patient. You need to just keep hitting it with the heaviest guns you've got, and these are not particularly heavy guns, these are rather rubbish 500mm cannons. APS is a good idea, though. Pretty much any kind of weapon will work against the Anvil, provided it doesn't get shot down by LAM systems too easily. LAM systems. Laser anti-munition system. It's like people who say, I don't know, like... Yeah, I can't think of an example right now, but you know what I mean when you say acronyms funny. So yeah, it's just move fast, and an important thing to note is that this thing burns through materials quite quickly because it's got a hungry steam engine in it. That steam engine is pretty much mostly to power the LAM system it has in there, which has a lot of pumps, by the way. I will show you that LAM system and its hungry pumps. Oop, wrong. Anvil. And whoop. 1, 2, 4. So, this LAM system in here, lots of pumps on it. It's got, what has it got here? It's got a whole bunch of single input, a whole bunch of storage, and a whole lot of pumps. Lots of pumps and enough, and it also has a destabilizer, which is one of the reasons it works so well. Destabilizers are really useful for a lamp system that perhaps burns through energy quite a lot, but it's almost guaranteed to whatever the first salvo is that comes at you, it's got a pretty good chance of dealing with it. It can even deal with large missiles, which is impressive for a lamp system. They're usually not very good at that. And I'll show you that and the horrible lack of anti-air on this thing. You'll notice that this thing has no anti-aircraft guns at all, so small flyers tend to make a bit of a mockery of it. So let's spawn in a bunch of easy guys. So planes can easily catch up to it. So these are spirals, and these are easy Steel Strider planes. And the Anvil is kind of screwed against them. Like, admittedly, the LAM system will eat a lot of their missiles, but also, that's a lot of missiles. That don't home in very well, I have to say. And do bugger all damage. So let's test that again. Actually, that did something. They were clipping off barrels, something terrible. But yeah, aircraft, this thing is not good at dealing with. Like, especially at range, so... what's an example of a fast thing? Let's have a few Voltas. Yeah, and face-melting lasers, they do great against this. Oh, you're gonna give him a hug? Oh dear, that was not a good idea. The Anvil is quite solid, as you might guess from the name. The Voltas are less so. Actually, the Voltas were a terrible excuse for that. Let's go with the Megawatt instead. Oh, they're getting nailed by friendly fire. Oh dear. I think this took a weird turn. Basically, yeah. So if you want to kill the Anvil, move fast, prepare to deal with lambs, dodge them cram mortars, and let's actually see if I can put my money where my mouth is and have one of my ships do it. I guarantee you they won't be able to. Over here, what is a fast ship? And also have good deck armor, as it turns out, and remember to armor your turrets well, because, quite frankly, like, cram mortars have a habit of clearing your deck of absolutely everything. Everything you want, anyway. Let's see how the Krampus does. I haven't tested the Krampus against this thing. That did it. Also, just ignoring the armor and just basically beating the Anvil at its own game. Saturating the deck with explosions. Great way to stop those mortars ruining your life. I've completely forgot about the Krampus. It's so much fun. How fast is this thing going? 60 meters per second is plenty enough to dodge cram mortars. Plenty. And also, if you blow up the whole ocean, you're pretty sure to get the target. So, this is a pretty short Most Wanted, but yeah, move fast, dodge like crazy, blow up the guns, is how you deal with the Anvil. So, yeah, hope that's helpful. Also, submarines. I almost forgot to mention submarines. This thing, because of those altitude fuses, it cannot hit anything that hovers below the waterline. So yeah, and pretty much any system will work, assuming it can get through the lambs. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Support me on Patreon if you like, it really helps. And I will see you next time in From the Depths. Most Wanted, why are you firing in that direction? Have we blinded you? Oh, poor Anvil. Like, I don't know why I'm talking like that. This thing is not having a good day. Farewell!